our next moment is actually not promised.
Yeah.
This beautiful thing called life that we have, it is so precious because we really don't know what's going to happen next. How moving it was. There was one lady there at that facility who was like really a jazz head, sang every lyric I sang. And afterwards was like, I used to always go to the clubs. And so something that has emerged as we've been like creating this space of what do I really want?
Hmm.
Like, I would like to advance to different clubs, but I also want to root it
Oof.
in service, in bringing music to folks who can't make it to those clubs.
Not even an hour from when we walked out of the
Was it?
room
It was
and
so
you got
wild.
the phone call with this person you wanted to perform with at this location on your birthday, which was actually when we had this meditation where you pictured this dress that you now have.
I feel like my voice is a gift for me, but not just a gift for me. To like create spaces of beauty. What's beautiful about jazz is nobody makes that by themselves. How a song is performed on a particular moment is never replicable, more than the sum of the parts of the people who bring themselves to it, as well as like what the audience brings to it. And so that is amazing. Like just to be able to be in that space and feel all that, oh my gosh, it's amazing.
Hello, fellow co-creators. Welcome back to Seeds of Elegance. This is the lucky 13th episode, and I'm not even interviewing someone who I had put on the list for spring and summer. We're going to get started with that next week with Celine Waters. But in this episode, it's such a delight to have a conversation with Tiffany Gridrion, a client, a creatrix, a friend, and a woman who is living the embodiment of music as healing, music as connection. In this episode, I invite you to pay attention to the power of art, the play of art to activate us as humans back into more of our humanity. It is artists, I truly believe, who will move us through this powerful historical moment where so much is changing. And truly, we cannot process the moment through the mental, intellectual mind alone, but we'll need greater access to our senses, to our bodies, to our capacity and ability to relate. And it's been such a joy to steward this process with Tiffany Gridiron and to open up the process of dream doulaship for more women and creators seeking to access not just the income that they desire, not just the impact they desire, but acting from the identity and the interdependence that they want to live into the world. Here with me is Tiffany Gridiron. She is a musician, a jazz singer, songwriter, and vocalist who has such a full month ahead. In this birthday month of hers, she will be traveling across Michigan and New York City. So you're going to get the opportunity to not just hear this interview, but if you are in Michigan or New York at this time, hear her live, come out and experience one of her shows. And today specifically, we are coming together as fellow creatrixes, women who are building lives from the presence of the heart and the creative energy of our souls. And I have been getting to work with Tiffany over the last 9 months. She has really supported me, even though I've been supporting her as a designer and coach. She has really supported me with the structure of something that I have wanted to birth. And it is a framework for allowing somebody else's vision to come forth over time. So June is actually the completion of our 9 month dream doulaship, as I like to call it, experience. And now I'm still doing some design work with her, but we actually had this meeting last week where she said, Libby, the baby's here. Like the needs are changing because what I came to you for is in fruition. And so we've been reflecting throughout the time on this concept of doulaship and dream doulaship, and both dually experiencing the joy and the fun and the play and the reality of this process. And so we wanted to have a conversation today to uplift some of that, as well as to uplift her own work and story. So, Tiffany, welcome to Seeds of Elegance.
Well, thank you, Libby. I'm glad to be here.
I would love to begin with Where were you when
Mm.
you first reached out to me? Why did you reach out to me in August of 2024? And what is alive now? And then we'll get to do a little dance around this unfolding.
Aha. Okay. Wow. Well, that's a little bit of a longer story about why I reached out to you, Libby, because Libby and I have known each other for about 10 years now. And
10
so
years exactly.
we met when she was in a program that I am currently working on with this undergraduate program that's geared at helping young people to find connection with folks from all different places. And in that process, really find new places within themselves and new places in terms of their sense of purpose about their future. I was in the program, the Emerald program, Multiracial Unity Living Experience. I was in it when I was an undergrad. I have friendships from that program that, yeah, they have some years on them, more than 10, and it has been life-changing. And so to have the opportunity to like accompany young people as they're figuring out what they wanted to do has been a joy. And then I remember meeting Libby the first time I interviewed Libby, and she was in this, you were in this major, I'm talking to you. You're in
Yep.
this major called experiential architecture. I've never heard before. And I was just blown away by just like the vastness of your curiosity, of the way you're heart centered, how much experience you had with like in different contexts. And so then I got lucky enough to be able to supervise you. And then I would just learn through interacting with you, like your connection with the arts. You would always bring a journal, and you always had like all these beautiful images of like what you were making sense of in the world. And like I would have a one-on-one with you, like talk about what we had to do with for your job.
Yep.
But like I personally was curious like what's going on in her journal, because you always had like some new thing that like I could
Mm,
grow from and be edified from. And so I knew you to be a deep thinker, and I knew you to have a design background, but I also kind of knew that you were working in more broad spaces around coaching and um, heart-centered thing, sexuality stuff. I mean, like
mm.
it's very broad. Like all of the spaces that humanity can encompass is like what you're so interested in.
And we're weaving a web over here, and it doesn't easily fit in words yet.
I mean, but the thing is like I don't have to understand it in words, but on an energetic level, I'm like, I get it, Levy. Like, I get it. And then I have a trusted friend who had a session with you and came out feeling really like moved, and I like trust her so much.
Mm,
And then she used just maybe a few of the techniques with me, and I was like we were in a car, and I remember like having this experience of like being invited to like name desire,
mm,
and how hard that is. And maybe it's not hard for everybody, but for me, I think it has been hard to be vulnerable enough to say I want something, and like sit in the distance between the not having it and like the saying that you want it.
mhm.
So anyway,
Not
coming back
just you, by the
around.
way. Every single person who this was a fundamental part of my training in sacred sexuality work was actually doing an entire first session with a person where we only focus on desire. And it started changing my life when I first had I'd never experienced an hour straight of being asked, and what do you want? And what do you want? What do you want? And so, and I just want to share that in all the people I've coached over the last 2 years, the first question that we always do is celebrate as well. And both of these concepts are very unfamiliar for us as people to celebrate ourselves, not just gratitude, but like really see how we're showing up. And then to name what we desire, not just what we need. Even what we need is hard, but to actually be like, I desire, wait, what I want? What do you mean, what do I want? I have this list of things I have to do.
Right, right. Absolutely, absolutely. So like that brings, yeah, so And so enter, I'm meeting you. I had some very like specific logistical challenges around my website that was like really wanting to like tear my hair out.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was kind of coming to a realization of like, and some ch life changes. So I knew I was approaching like the end of a 18-year relationship.
Mm.
There were some other big, I knew I had lost um, a sibling, which was really intense. It was some years back, but it kind of was like a turning point in terms of, oh, this life thing is
Mm.
not necessarily as long as you think it's going to be.
Yep.
And
And we both, I also just want to throw this in as well, which is that I have traveled a lot in the last decade. So it's not that I was always present, but I've come back to Michigan over time where you live and where I live right now. And we were around each other's lives after my brother passed. And for you, it was also a brother. And so we also, even though that was not a formal working together at that time, we also had that touch point in those years, even though I'm not sure. My brother died in 19. I'm not sure what year it was for you.
2017.
Okay, so 2 years apart.
2017.
Yeah,
Mhm.
still close. And in death time, that's like the same. Like time just it doesn't matter
Right.
how long it's
That's
been. In my
so true.
humble
It's so
opinion.
true. Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting because I think sometimes people don't because there's so much variation in terms of a sibling relationship. And I think a lot of times people understand like the death of a spouse, the death of a parent, the death of a child, but not always do people understand like how impactful the death of a sibling can
Mm,
be and how transformative that was for me. And okay, I'm going to take a step back
yeah.
because this is another strange coincidence between you and I, Libby.
Yep.
So in like 2019, I was getting ready to, um, I was feeling the call back to music because I hadn't been doing music for some time.
Mm,
And I went to your sister's performance
mm,
locally, and she's a singer-songwriter. And I was so moved by her writing that I felt inspired and I went home and I started writing. And then serendipitously, I got in contact with an old friend of mine who unprompted was like, Tiff, it's time for you to sing and
mm,
it's time for you to write. And that was Chris Johnson, who became my producer and arranger and co-composer. So we were able to work for a number of years until we released a CD in 2023.
mm.
So I'm giving a little bit of backstory.
Yeah.
So it's from 2023 to about 2024 when I came to you, Libby. I had been doing some work to kind of advance this desire to do music. But I got to a place where like I knew I needed some more help.
Mm,
And I knew I needed help around technical, like visuals and how to advance a narrative. What I didn't know was that I needed help with a container that would allow me to clarify like what my dream was in such a way that I could articulate it so that it could be heard and the universe could start to organize in ways that it could assist me because I was not prepared for like how much assistance is possible when you
mm.
dare to say the thing that
Ooh,
you want.
yes. Okay. I'm gonna pause you there because I'm so excited to get into some of those layers. But first I want to say thank you and thank you for speaking some of these things. I also want to share a vulnerability because there's when two humans are working together on this level, on like bringing forth something into the world, it's there's a vulnerability and there's a back and forth. It's not buying. I sometimes share with people as I've been in the journey of building a business in this space, how like, if you know you want chicken and you go and you order it, like it's not a
Mm,
huge, like, yes, you have a preference. Okay, I like this over this, but you have the idea of what it is and it's not that vulnerable. Someone's gonna make your food. Um, But when you're asking somebody, I remember I actually talked about this years back with the first coach I worked with after my brother passed. I was like, what's so different about this kind of interaction is like, I have to be willing to work with you. Like, it is not a purchase. It's not like you go to the store, you buy the
Yeah.
outfit, and you have the clothing. Like, I actually have to be available to work with the tools you're going to bring.
Mm.
And it's not like it's not automatic. Even if you want to be available to, let's say, open up your heart, or like these are they're abstract things that open up your heart to be creative, to bring, yes, there's literal visual things that we can see when we're producing a website or when we're taking action, like for in your case, where as a music artist, there's applications to things or reaching out to places. There's visceral and physical outcomes that we do see, but the process of inner awareness and inner work is not visual, and why I've also been using a
Mm.
phrase lately called into the wild to bring this analogy of this entry into the unknown a bit when
Mm.
we're saying yes to these things. So I just want to name that a vulnerability for me was you are someone that I knew. And this has been a nuance as well as I begin to build a business where I'm working with people in a heart-centered way and creative ways too. I'm rearranging my identities of how I relate as I choose to put these things out. And so I was still wondering about this weaving. And I have in my background today, I haven't used this background in Seeds of Elegance, but I use it when I coach sometimes, which is sacred geometry on one side and then like this divine feminine woman in nature on the other, because I thought, okay, I don't know exactly what it's going to be like. So let me listen to what it is that you even want to bring to the table. And when I got to you, I was like, listen, I didn't even write up a contract. And you're like, that's fine. Let me actually tell you what I need. And we workshopped an idea, which was for, I think, maybe 2 months. And then we can get into that in a moment. But it's like we then ended up continuing to work together for a season and a season. And that showed me the power of change over time and the emergence. I use the word a lot, emergence in my work to talk about almost like a caterpillar becoming a butterfly, to allow the idea to actually come to fruition. Unlike now, where I can actually sit with someone and be like, okay, actually, like a couple weeks ago, I was on call with someone and articulating the power of a 9-month container and of integrating design and healing work. Like, and this woman was like, whoa, yeah, I want and need all of that. Like, I
Yeah.
actually didn't sit with you and even have that framework yet because the structure for it came through us, and then I started doing it with someone else as well. But you're my baby in my process, so thank you for going with me on this journey.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you. Because, like, again, I thought I went in thinking I wanted strictly design. And, like, even how we got to some of the design elements was through there's so many techniques that you utilize to help to draw out, like, what a person's purpose is, what their desires are, what is the feeling like that wants to be, like, when you're doing the thing, like how do you want to feel when you're doing the thing, so that, like, it actually is the thing that you want. And so, like, there were so many different techniques, and so much of that would find its way, like, it would manifest, like, with color,
Mhm.
like with sparkle,
Mhm.
because, like, I love sparkle, and so we found ways to, like, have things sparkle, um like different meditation techniques. I remember one particular experience in December where there was, like, a visualization, and I was imagining myself, like, in another time and place, and it just happened to be around this time. And there were some colors that were kind of like emerging from this kind of guided visualization, and I just so happened to have that color dress ready to put on in a few days.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I think there's ways I could have, like, just done the things that you think you're supposed to do,
Mhm.
but what's been so beautiful about working with you is really getting at the heart of like how is this uniquely this thing that you have
Mm.
gonna go in the world, and like, and that actually was what I wanted. And
Yeah.
so like getting to like find language and color and texture around that, I have this gift for song.
Hmm.
And like there's a mystery around that. Like I can say like I have lots of women in my family who are beautiful singers.
Yeah.
Still, I'm not in control of like how my body was arranged to make particular sounds,
Mm.
or the fact that like when I don't make those particular sounds, I'm not particularly happy. So like the process of like just honoring that,
Yeah.
oh, this is how I was put together. However a person conceives how we get here, that's how I was put together. Okay, so I have to do this thing. But then what's so beautiful is like the questions, and like the questions you asked Libby, they kept coming to get deeper and deeper.
Hmm.
But like, and through that, I'm all over the place. But I think it really actually speaks to this idea of like the doulaship. When you said doula, like I got it. I got it that like something was being created that I was facilitating,
Mm.
that you were supporting, but that was a mystery to both of us.
Hmm.
Um, I got it had like it was due, it wanted to come. I got
Hmm.
that it wanted to come, and like how do we create an environment where it can emerge?
Yeah.
Um, and so the space to actually think about how would I want this to come into the world. And not that there's like, when we talk about dreams, it's not a binary of like it's in or it's not. Like just like a baby. It's like a baby can, be existing and interacting in ways that like, yeah, I think there's mystery with regard to how things come into fruition and all the different pieces that play into it. Like your sister doing a performance locally that like made me go and write a song that in part is about like missing my brother. Like the
Hmm.
connective pieces around that I think are powerful.
Yeah, thank you. I want to uplift, like, first of all, I say this in a little thing around why, like, what Seeds Elegance is and how I host these. And I was like, sometimes what I've noticed when I hold these conversations is we might even get a little lost. And there's something that's important in that because we, even in this conversation, are uplifting something. And so what I heard when you were speaking is something twofold that I really want to uplift. You talked about getting to like uniquely feel you. And this
Mm,
is something so, so, so important to me that I'm still working on the languaging and how I support people. But in my brother's passing, who was an artist as well, I really had this understanding that I knew like this has got to be like I have my own mission and purpose, but there's a lot that I'm learning all the time about what, we're moved by people. They
yes,
change the trajectories we have. They deepen it, they open.
yes.
And so one of the gifts for me through that was what does it look like to support artists and in the world? And like
Mm,
really there's so many layers to that. Like
yeah.
there's no end, like that's a question I'm going to hold my whole life. But one of the things about it that is so much bigger than art, but artist gets uniquely live this, is the phrase that pops in my head that's a social judgment. It's you're not all unique snowflake. You're each a unique snowflake. You're not a unique snowflake. We are. Like we are both. Here's the mystery. We are both so completely unique and so completely one of 8 billion. And the artists, like artists show us and teach us in embodied ways that
Mm,
uniqueness, in my opinion, because there's many of us don't have certain gifts. And then if you do have it, it's beautiful. And then even if you have the gift of song or have built up your practice in an instrument or with a certain visual art form, you bring your humanity into that, and that creates something for a collective. So there's just a beauty in artistry, period, that I
Mhm.
love. But then there's this question of how do we bring more of who we are into that process? And this is something that I care about, not just in art, but also in scientific work and also in social work and also in coaching. And I really bring this energy that like there is actually a, a uniqueness in each of us and what we're bringing forth that matters, even when we are looking for the larger processes too. Okay, that's a lot longer conversation, but that is something that really mattered to me. I had to learn this through doing it the opposite way first. I first did try to support people more through regimented schedules. And I kind of thought I'm still bringing a couple projects to fruition, but if I just take my skills as a fitness instructor and apply that to creative work, that will, let's see, basically, that was the first experiment. And it didn't work because it's not something that you can just put as a schedule on the page. You get to actually work with the inner parts of who are learning all the time from life itself.
Mm.
And so that's what I feel like we had the privilege to do through having a weekly experience on the schedule together. I actually had been working with people bi-weekly before that. We had the opportunity to bring in more of your humanity. And I just want to uplift because this is a vulnerable thing, both for artists, for me as in the coaching space, sometimes this is a vulnerable thing, which is we are presenting in a specific way. We actually have to bring a really deep quality of authenticity that a lot of spaces in the world, in corporate and education, in government, um, don't allow for. So we are actually seen as more vulnerable as most, as artists or as people who are working on the heart and coaching and therapy. But at the same time, we also have our entire own experience going on as well. That even when we are digesting and moving through and then presenting something out to the world through a model or through a song, we're still also going through our own process as well. And so, really facilitating a process with you where we are not just jumping past the
Mm.
human reality that's happening to get to the creation, but allowing the human reality to keep informing what wants to come. Which a very tangible part of that was, we knew we actually had set our first session to be after the signing of your divorce papers as this really like welcoming of a shift and a change that's happening in your life. So we already knew there was going to be this marker. What we
Yes.
didn't know was that in that same month, there would be like back to back to back life experiences that
Yeah.
were extremely challenging.
Yeah. Yeah. The loss of a good friend, the loss of my stepfather, and very freak accident. I mean, it was a lot of lifing that was happening as we were beginning our work, which I really appreciated how you recalibrated, or maybe it wasn't even recalibrated, it just might be the way you work, Libby, because whatever in my head timelines I had, like they were not realistic
Mm,
in the sense that like what was cooking clearly needed more time.
mm,
Um, but also the you kept bringing my attention to the ways that also things beyond me were organizing themselves to help my dreams keep progressing.
mm,
And you also drew my attention to the ways that I was trying to make concerted effort,
mm,
even if it wasn't at the pacing that I thought, which
mm,
is also like part of the work is just like understanding that creative processes, as you were saying, like They don't work on a timetable. Like they're connected to our humanity and they're connected to like how we struggle. And there's things that like creatively come out of struggle that, right, as my mom like said, the journey is the point. And so we when we started, it was a really tough time. And I really appreciated the container that you provided for like the grounding exercises where we could both like name what are we holding and what are we celebrating,
Mm,
and how I could see how if we were to just necessarily like get into the business, I would have an energetic place of like not enoughness. I haven't done enough. I need to do more. Whoop, whoop, whoop. And then those experiences of just sitting and like, what are we holding? Let's give name to what are we holding?
yeah.
What are we
Here.
celebrating? And this is the invitation of what are we celebrating? Like
Hmm.
that there's in a life,
Hmm.
there's so much to celebrate. And it's so important to celebrate because, well, on its own,
Yeah.
but like our next moment is actually not promised.
Yeah.
This beautiful thing called life that we have, it is so precious because we really don't know what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
So being able to be invited to like sit fully into the present moment and feel like the mystery and the preciousness of just being of just existing
Hmm.
and tracing the pathways of like where assistance is, that we're not ever all doing it by ourselves, like nobody's doing
Mm.
that,
Hmm.
um has been so wonderful, so wonderful, really. I mean, clearly it's
Hmm.
been very moving.
Welcome emotions, which we love welcoming in our container too. Thank you for your own presence to that as well. And I think it really allowed for I want to name like what began happening for you, which was pretty much every single time that I came in the session and asked what are you celebrating, there was people coming out of the woodwork left and right and everywhere asking for you to apply for things, asking for you to co-sing with them, asking for you to join their experience. Me personally, because I work with a lot of people, there's no right or wrong here, but there is different. There's like you witness, like we are at different places as humans, and every moment of the process is powerful. But for me, when I just witness this like month after month after month shifts, given that the way we started, you actually described, it feels like my whole world is being shaken like a snow globe.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, you are so ready. Like whatever is happening, like you came to me at the place where it was just like, yeah, this baby's like, it's coming out. Like you did not come, even though we still worked for 9 months. It's not like you came when you were like, I'm thinking about birthing something. It was like, we're just so ready. You actually use this phrase, like, I already know the badassery that is my music and what I'm building, but I just want to see it tangible. And in that moment, you were talking about the website and the graphics, but I feel like there was an even bigger also welcoming of like, whoa, you have 12 gigs this month. You have a full-time musician experience this month, even though you actually do have a full-time job right now that so you have 12 gigs in seven different locations.
Yeah.
And like we didn't sit down and write all those places, but we wrote one of them. Like the very first text you ever sent me was, I want to perform here. And I also want to describe a moment where we were leaving a meeting and you were like, so much is moving, Libby. I just can't wait until I can tell you that I got the gig here.
Mhm.
And then literally I was on my walk home and I got a phone call. I had missed it. And you were like, so you sent a voice note? And I was like, okay, call me back because I actually want to hear you tell me this live. And it was like not even an hour from when we walked out of the room
Was it? It was
and
so wild.
you got the phone call with this person you wanted to perform with at this location on your birthday, which was actually when we had had this meditation where you pictured this dress that you now have.
Yeah, Yeah, it's pretty wild. I'm definitely, yeah, I'm so grateful for the process of like being encouraged and accompanied to just keep speaking the desires,
Mm,
to like let them go and see how right, because it didn't necessarily seem connected, but like it was mysterious and kind of felt magical, which is like I know one a word that like really you resonate with.
yeah.
And now I'm just like not even resisting that there is some kind of synchronicity, serendipity, wonder, amazement that is waiting for us when we lean into what we want to do, and like what we've been given. It's like we've been given this, and okay, I can say for myself, like I feel like my voice is a gift for me, but not just a gift for me.
Hmm.
And being able to like work with you to like articulate more that and have to like that it is not just a gift for me. It like create spaces of beauty
Hmm.
with people. Like I'm very much a relational person.
Yep.
Like, so, what's beautiful about jazz is nobody makes that by themselves. You
Mm,
make it in real time with like people and people who, were you stuck in traffic? Did you get in a fight on the way there? Did you hear good news? Like how a song is performed on a particular moment is never replicable. It is absolutely like the more than the sum of the parts of the people who bring themselves to it, as well as like what the audience brings to it.
mm,
And so that is amazing. Like just to be able to be in that space and feel all that, oh my gosh, it's amazing. But then it's also amazing to like see what that does for an audience
yeah.
and what that does between audience members. And so we had a meditation where I was talking about how important it is for me that music is used as a way to connect people. Like
Yeah.
people make appointments with loved ones maybe they haven't seen in a while
Mhm.
around music. And I had an experience back in 2023, beautiful guitarist by the name of Ben Turner, who came to my house and did a concert for my stepfather who had Alzheimer's. And he had these friends who, some people can witness Alzheimer's and some people really struggle. And like being able to have music as a way to like redirect the focus so that they could sit with one another.
Mm,
That's an extreme example, but like it created a space that was really moving for everyone there
yeah.
and wanting to see like, oh wow, like this art facilitates people being able to sit close to their loved ones is a gift to witness. It's a gift to participate in. And that's another thing that I think that has emerged in the process is like recognizing when people are kind of at end of life, which at any moment all of us are. We do, like because we don't
Yep.
really know um how powerful it is to use music as
Mm,
a way to alleviate pain, as a way to help reach parts of the brain that music seems to like just like beeline in, and you see people kind of come back in ways because it exists in a different part of the brain.
yep.
And then to see it as a place where like caregiver and care recipient can like really sit with each other in different ways,
Mm,
um, has been something that has emerged in this process as actually a desire. And so it wasn't even a couple weeks ago. I don't even know how it wasn't 2 weeks ago. I was able to do like my first performance like in a retirement facility,
mm,
um and just with a beautiful musician named Mia Chinney who has been running tunes with me for I mean like twice a month for like the so far every part of like from January all the way
mhm.
until now. And how moving it was. There was one lady there at that facility who was like really a jazz head, like really like was calling tunes and I was like, "Oh, okay."
Mm,
And told and sang every lyric I sang. And afterwards was like, I used to always go to the clubs And I was like, oh my gosh, we're bringing the club to her. She can't go to the clubs anymore. We're bringing the clubs to her. And so something that has emerged as we've been like creating this space of what do I really want?
Mm.
Like I would like to advance to like different clubs, like clubs that are like, we're going up. But I also want to root it
Oof.
in service, in bringing music to folks who can't make it to those clubs,
Oof.
and to continually remind myself of like the breadth of what this gift can be for
Mm.
myself and for the communities that I inhabit.
Bow to you. Beautiful. This I didn't realize until it's so fun working for different people and learning, like entering worlds, right? Because I'm not a jazz musician. I do have a sister who's a singer, and I grew up in a house with music, but I did not know until I was working with you also the dynamic of, oh, sometimes we don't even rehearse. Sometimes if it's a bigger gig or we're musicians, we have a rehearsal, but sometimes the way jazz works is we just know the standards and we just show up and we play together and we're able to get in tune. And I actually went to, throughout our time together, we would also go to a place where jazz music was live, and I would witness this experience as well, where these musicians would just invite in we live next to a university, so students would come. Or I remember this one night where I was feeling I was feeling really heavy, and I was actually texting someone from a experience I was just at where we were describing some of the it was, pretty soon after the election, and it was still like very, very heavy time in February. And just being at this jazz club and watching four trombonists come and join the experience, and how like it wasn't too much. Like everyone had a part, and the whole this is at a restaurant, and so having the whole restaurant just like light up from these trombonists who just kept walking in the door and joining the experience. And was texting this person who I was at the emotional going through the healing experience with, and I said, magic really does come out of nowhere. Like sometimes you're just sitting in a restaurant and all of a sudden there's four trombonists playing jazz music. And my sister also last year was when I first started using the word magic a lot in what I do. And I was still at a place where I was like, I don't know where I fit. Like, am I trying to pretend? Am I trying to, I don't want to say pretend, but it does feel like pretend now. Am I trying to say that I'm a therapist? Like, I'm not a therapist, but am I trying to like align myself more with a healing that's very grounded in the body? And if I talk about magic, is that going to make it feel too ungrounded? And I remember my sister even saying, like, magic do you really have to use that word? And I went on to change my Zoom password to be magic. So almost every conversation I have on Zoom now, people are always like, magic, what do you mean? La la la. And what I love, because I study different spiritual traditions, and there's one I study, and they say, magic is being able to be so with the mundane that you can
Mm,
actually feel it, that you can actually feel like the presence of the moment. And so I bring that as well because art
yes,
itself is magic.
yes,
What is art?
yes.
What is it?
Bring
Where is it
it.
coming from?
That's right. Where is it coming from? And also, like, when you concentrate on it, you get to be as fully present in the present moment. Like, it's an invitation to, like, be here right now. When you're watching those trombonists, like, make those melodies that seem like they come out of air and like they've been working hard at it, but like sometimes when it's really good, like as a musician, like you're even surprised, like where is that coming from? I didn't know that this, like
Yep.
in my spiritual tradition where I was raised, it's like your help comes, but like your muse, your inspiration, but being part of it or witnessing it, like you are there in the moment. And when I also think about
Mm.
end of life,
Yeah.
which I think about a lot. People think it's morbid. I actually don't. I actually think
Yeah.
it makes for so much more aliveness now that I've like really spent a lot of years with grief
Yeah.
to the point where I understand it to be a gift of grief is
Mm.
to understand
Mm.
that the moment is precious. When you come to it's those moments of presence
Mm.
that are going to be much more important than any piece of material thing that gets handed down, in a will. It's like the moment you were with your loved one
Mm.
where you experienced something intangible, but absolutely like in the present moment. And
Mm.
so the more we can have that,
Yeah.
and it's unfortunate, I think our society does not like prioritize that.
Hmm.
But as artists, I think we have a responsibility to continually invite ourselves
Yeah.
and each other into those moments.
Mm. Yes.
Magical moments.
Uh-huh. And there's another phrase I want to bring as well, which is the trying to think if there's another question I want to ask you, but I'll bring a phrase first, which is I was recently at a retreat for women who are doing similar work as me in sexuality and coming into the body and trauma healing. And the woman running it said, I think it's really important. It was the first day of the retreat. And she's like, I think it's really important to acknowledge this work is deep, but it's not that deep either.
Mm,
And that we can just hold both.
mm, mm.
And this was so helpful to have names because like the grief process as well. Like you can't sit in the grief process and be like, it's not that deep. But at the same time, me living in a home where we went through a loss that's also a very painful loss. Suicide has a very particular quality of pain around it. The amount of laughter, the amount of jokes we make, like it was a journey. Like we were making jokes from day one because we're a big family. So it's how you move through things. But I remember like at first people would always come over and they'd be like, wait, am I allowed to laugh at that? We'd be like, oh, that's my brother. He used to be like, I won't go into it. We making jokes left and right. But like you do learn to move with the both and I feel like music
Yeah.
and the arts are this example where you are able to watch a scene where you're crying and then a scene where someone's falling in love and then a scene where you're laughing and you witness we actually experience there that oh we can do this, we can
Yeah.
move. The emotional experience is dynamic and it
Mm.
changes and it moves and music does that. Live music is, I remember being at a concert of yours earlier this year, being with my sister who had that you had seen but now is here for this show, and she was crying and this other person was crying over a song you have that is reminding us of what Cheers to Life and look at, like let's actually pay attention and just witnessing the back and forth of the songs that uplift and lighten and the songs that ground and deepen. And I also will just share, I think it's beautiful. I always remember this one back when I was your student and you were supervising me. I remember us having this conversation where I was talking about wanting to work with sexual energy or in some way. Like, well, I don't know what it looks like, but something about um I don't think I used the word energy back then, but the erotic or like how we actually, I think even then I was at holding group space. So you just start to notice. We were talking about this experience when you're working with humans and working with emotions and how to again hold a space or container where movement where this dynamic experience can happen. And I remember you telling me like, on a stage you experience that you really do witness how much just your presence and your ability to you're singing, but the words, the music, the melody is actually shifting the experience in a room. So yeah, just uplifting the joy of I also didn't know how much would come out as I was helping you and or supporting you. And what I got to learn as well was your connection to community in your art and how you craft your experiences as a singer, the experiences as when you're because jazz is collaborative, so with your fellow musicians. And then even this is something I noticed years ago as a designer. This is what got me into social change even more because I would design and I would know, whoa, design is very political. Design is very, there's no decision in design
Mhm.
that stands alone. Like there's an intent, there's purpose behind it. And I would get in these long, this is my original coaching work was I was just doing designs, but people would say, okay, I can't have this there. I can't have this there. I need this here. I need this here. And so I would end up getting the whole backstory of all the human issues just based on the design. And in your case, it was art. So it wasn't like but things I was doing that had budgets, but it had this similar feel where we at first I was designing images that just had your face on them or your name. And then you hit this place where you were like, I really want to make sure it's so important to me, community. And I want to make sure that not just the names of these artists are on these posters, but their faces. And I actually want to make sure that it's actually them with their instrument because we realized in the poster alone, we could create the image of the group playing. And up until even yesterday, we made this poster that we love of your June showcase. And then you were like, listen, I love the simplicity, but I need these artists on there. Like, I need to honor who's going to be here. And so that was also a joy. I remember sitting at a cafe when we started shifting the way we were doing the designs and getting the faces on there. And I was like, whoa, I can feel it differently having them featured. And so this is just also a dynamic of design work and actually creating like out in the world because we give ourselves the opportunity to name. It's like another entry point to name the desire and to put the image to the page of what we want to see out there. And then the life also teaches us and we bring it back in. So
Mm, mm. Yeah, that was I really loved how that moment kind of unfolded, and I think when you start to like keep asking questions, yeah, what gets uncovered as what's important.
yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
There is one piece that I forgot to say right now when we were talking, but just I really want to mirror back to you the beauty of your desire to both be in the club and be in the retirement home. And I remember like for a while you naming like this is a very important place for me to be, and then getting those gigs and that also being part of the Dream Doula vision. And I really want to uplift that because for the pe I've been having a lot of calls right now with people who are considering this kind of work and it's this kind of work is not it's for artists but it's also for coaches therapists teachers like anyone who's bringing a service into the world and really wondering like where does it situate like how do I situate this like where does it fit in myself where does it fit out there and it's super super important to me the things that you're naming and it was such a joy to honor it in you that we get to play in these spectrums. It's not either our world sometimes in our culture or our even our limited thinking would have us believe it's one or the other. And it's a dance. It's a dance. You are going to have to be the creatrix of it because no one's going to hand you the map that says, this is how you balance the things. These are the jobs that are going to pay. These aren't the ones that aren't going to pay in dollar, but they are going to pay in value for you and what you care about. Or these are the things that, might take a lot more effort to bring forth. Like the more people you have on a project, for example, the more effort. But this is going to bring a quality of impact you want. So I love supporting people to be in that dance and remember like you are the one you have that this is part of your vision
Yeah.
it's challenging because there isn't a roadmap to it but it's a gift because there isn't a roadmap to it and
Yeah.
something in you actually wants to set the tone for it so just want to name
Hmm.
that as you also invite I know there's events people can come to and then there's other ones where you just also go and set the tone for but yeah where can people find you and how would you like them to engage with the
Yeah.
future Tiffany Gridiron.
If you want to get a better, a different sense of like who I am and kind of what I've done so far, you can go to the website, tiffanygridironmusic.com. If you want to like see where I'm gonna be, you can see it there. You can also see it on Instagram. Again, Tiffany Gridiron Music. I have a professional Facebook, Tiffany Gridiron Music, as well as Instagram, Tiffany Gridiron Music. And I'm gonna be this Friday at Red Cedar in East Lansing. I will be actually, I don't know when this is going to air. So you can look at those places to see where I'm going to be. But I want to say this Saturday, I want to say it. This Saturday, I'm going to be at Blue Llama with my very good friend, Chris Johnson. And this is the place that we named when we first met. And I just think it's really beautiful that I will be there on my actual birthday with my friend of so many years, like 25 years. and who also has stewarded me through the process of like naming myself. Actually, he believed it, but like I now believe it too of myself as a writer in addition to a singer. And so we're going to be featuring some of our co-creations at that performance. And then I'm going to round off the month at Smalls in New York City. So I'm really excited with a bunch of wonderful performances with so many incredible musicians, many of whom I would call friends. I feel really blessed at this birthday, my first birthday as a single person in 18 years,
How
to be living my dream and be doing it in community with so much beauty and so much support. And I thank you, Libby, for everything you've done in the last 9 months, but also like the last 10 years. I mean, every time I talk to you, it's like it's an opportunity to think bigger and more expansively about what is possible.
Mm.
And you show that with your incredibly brave and like I used to say this about you like years ago, like you just like give yourself to the universe and just say, catch me. Um, I don't quite do it that much, but I have been so blessed to have you create the container and to continue to push me forward to name more and more
Mm.
of what I want in the world and what I want to give and what I want to experience. So thank you.
Thank you. And yes, yay. It's been years before I felt ready to work with people on an emotional energetic process because I've been in such a state of experimentation around possibility and kind of asking the question like, is it me? Is this replicable? Can other people do this? Because I do put myself out there in really crazy ways. And now it's been a beautiful thing to learn. We all do have creative power in us, and the creative power is not ours. It's completely connected. And we do get these unique gifts, yes, but we also get to experiment and test with what is possible. So thank you again for your openness and naming. I love when we're actually paying attention. It's like all those moments where you are observing was also your, I think, readiness to be like, let's see what's possible here. And we are we are living it. This June month of yours is a Gemini gift, and I'm so grateful I got to witness the unfolding.